with the DA's new policy proposal. Amongst all voters, 68% agree with the policy of the DA. Amongst black voters, it's 60%, and amongst ANC voters, it's 61%. Now you look to, and then you follow that on with the next question we ask: do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Public procurement spend, in other words, government tenders for public services, should be determined by the value of the contract to the community and not the race of the service provider. 75% of all voters agree with public procurement spend based on value, not race. 70% of black voters and 72% of ANC voters agree with this. And so I think, Frans, you were completely correct in your read on the importance of the DA policy, because it is something that we've known and that you illustrated in when you talked about it, but we've known that this way of approaching empowerment and approaching procurement is the way that South Africans prefer.
The single most damning thing you could say about the lethargy in the ANC and the inability to see where the wind has been blowing politically here. And it's a fatal moment for any political party when you are overtaken on ideology or policy on either your left flank or your right flank by your own supporters. And there Gabriel's given it to you now.
Wow, this is earth-shattering. So, if there was a vote today, the ANC would get 37% and the DA would get 32%. MK has lost strength, almost halved, and the EFF has lost a little bit. I guess all the internal battles don't help. And when it comes to transformation only exists in the ANC propaganda machine, no longer exists in the hearts and minds of South Africans. This is huge. It's so huge, and it ties in with something that Prince Mashele was speaking about on the Truth Report with Rob Hertzhoff. Listen to this.
So by the time we hit 1994, Afrikaners were no longer poor. They were now middle class and rich. So when the blacks took over, the hope was they were going to use state power to develop themselves as a group. They did not. What did they do? Instead of asking themselves, what component can we add to the economy? They didn't ask themselves that question. They said, how can we get into the white man's tent? That's when BE comes in. So the elites wanted to run into the white man's tent to be accommodated. Instead of coming up with something new, a component that they would add and say, we are proud as a nation. This is what we have added. Just like the Afrikaners added parastatals to the South African empire. So the blacks did not add anything. So if you look at the South African economy and say, over the past 30 years, what is it that black people have added? In the main, black people have been consumers. They have not been creators of wealth.
But can that needle turn? Can a new dynamic of born frees, younger black leaders, black entrepreneurs, black corporates, black businessmen say, this isn't working, let's move in another direction and make something extraordinary happen for South Africa?
It can, but you'd need a black renaissance. And that black renaissance will be very painful. I told you I study societies all over the world. The turning point, the first turning point in the non-white world, the first group to raise themselves to the level of whites in terms of development, and this group became very proud, were the Japanese. And the Japanese did that because there was an intellectual revolution within Japanese society, and it was led by a visionary elite, the Meiji Empire from 1868. They asked themselves the question, why is it that these white people are so powerful? They are so ahead of us. What is the difference between us and them? They actually sent a delegation to go to the West, to go to America, to go to Europe, and say, go and study those people. What makes them to be ahead of us? When that delegation came back, first thing said, we as Japanese must acknowledge that we're backward. That's the starting point. If you do not acknowledge that you are backward, you will never address your backwardness. That's number one. Number two, they said there is no difference between us as Japanese and white people. We are all human.
Right.
We have heads, we have brains.
So what's the difference?
The only difference
is it a cultural issue?
Education. That's what the Japanese said. Simple. It's education. And the Japanese realize that it's not education in general. It's technical education, maths and science. So there was a deliberate investment by Japanese society that Japanese kids must study maths and science. And over time, Japan as a society, non-white, rose to the level of whites, to the extent that by the 70s and the 80s, Japan was the second largest economy in the world, having beaten the rest of Europe, by the way. It was America, number two was Japan.
And I remember I was living in New York at the time, and everything was the Japanese investors. And you're right.
China did the same.
Right.
Deng Xiaoping had to do a soul searching. And he said, we are backward. So the starting point, acknowledge that you are backward. Two, education, maths and science, in order to catch up with the West. Look at China today. China was backward in the 70s. Today, China is the second largest economy in the world. Let me tell you, you say I predict stuff.
Yes,
just look, in the next 15 years, if you and I live for the next 15 years, China will be number one in the world. Okay, go and read a book by Kishore Mabuban.
From where?
From Singapore.
Okay.
This is the guy who worked under Lee Kuan Yew. This guy is one of the best strategists living today. The guy studies the world as China won. If you read that book, you will realize all the indicators suggest that China has almost won. The Americans are sleeping. So, black people, if black people want to turn themselves around, firstly, and I say this boldly, they must acknowledge that they're backward. Secondly, they must wake up and adopt maths and science as their national priority. Black kids must study maths and science. Three, they must deal with SATU. The South African Democratic Teachers Union is a counter-revolutionary force destroying the education of the black child. We must clear them out of the way so that you don't gamble with the future of black children. Let me tell you, if you do what I'm telling you, over time, a period of 20 to 30 years, black people will be ahead of many other groups in the world. That's how others have done. So go and study East Asia, you will see.
But you look at the American applications for business schools and law schools, primarily Asian. The Asians are outperforming in math, science, engineering. It's extraordinary how they've committed themselves to math and science.
Well. Don't go to America, and I'll come back to that. Look here in South Africa, who are the top performers? Do you know who are the top performers in math and science? It's Indians. It's Indians right here in South Africa. Yeah. And the Indians are a minority. They don't worry about some nonsensical, ideological stuff that people debate on a daily basis. You know what they do? They study. Yeah, they study. What does that do? It lifts them above the rest. Black people are busy talking about Umkhonto weSizwe, a backward force. Umkhonto weSizwe, the EFF. These people are an embodiment of backwardness. Yeah. So we really have to start a real conversation, especially among blacks, an honest conversation. See, a guy like me, by the way, if I say what I'm saying, I know I'm going to be insulted, and I don't care. I mean, they can insult me as much as they want. I don't care.
I know the feeling.
But here's the thing, Rob. Society will move the day we look each other in the eye and tell each other the truth.
Make it a habit.